Welcome back. Our Tuesday trio of outstanding members of Parliament have reunited for the first head-butting session of 2017. All this just 2 hours before an emergency debate on immigration begins in the House of Commons. Let's bring them in. Marco Mendicino is a Liberal MP from Toronto. Karen Vecchio is a Conservative MP from southwestern Ontario. Nikki Ashen, an NDP MP from northern Manitoba. And one day she's going to tell me she's a leadership candidate for the NDP, but not today.
Right here on this set.
These debates, we've seen these debates happen before. They don't force action. But what action do you realistically want? I'll start with you, Nikki.
Well, first of all, it is the NDP, my colleague Jenny Kwan, who pushed for this debate, and we're very happy to see it taking place. This is an unprecedented time. I mean, the measures we've seen from Donald Trump are xenophobic, Islamophobic, and obviously Canadians have reacted in a big way. But in response to that, yes, we saw a very nice tweet from Prime Minister Trudeau. But upon asking a few more tough questions, there isn't much action to follow the talk that we're hearing from the Prime Minister. And so what we're really hoping for tonight is to get at that action. We're putting forward 5 actions that need to be taken by the federal government, including repealing the Safe Third Country Agreement.
And the cap, lift the cap,
lifting the cap on private sponsorship, working with folks that were being processed to seek refugee status in the U.S. So 5 key measures, and we're expecting the government to pick up on these, because it's not enough to just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk, especially at times like these.
Okay, what talking and walking do you want to see from Justin Trudeau's government after this?
Well, when we talk about talking, you know, we saw the Yazidis. We had talked about that a few months ago. We've been asking about the Yazidis, girls coming in from Syria and from that region. Right now, we've been asking in the House of Commons how many have been brought in, and we still see the number being 0. And that's a huge concern for us. So I think as Canadians, we recognize what's going on in the United States, but we really need to make sure that we work on our immigration policies and that we're not failing our Canadians and the people coming here to Canada. We continue to be a warm and welcoming country, and I think our immigration policies are strong, could be stronger, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we stand up for Canada and do the right thing for our Canadians living here.
You're no not shy about talking, but what's the walking you're going to do as a result of this debate? Anything?
Well, it is walking, and as you've heard the Prime Minister say, this government will vigorously defend the bedrock values on which our country is founded: diversity, inclusiveness, multiculturalism. Canada is a nation of immigrants, and that has driven our prosperity and our economic growth. And the way that we're walking the walk is on a number of fronts. One, we welcomed close to 46,000 new refugees last year, of which a great many were from Syria. Yep. But we have a similar goal this year. Number 2, you've seen the Prime Minister and our government actively seek and get assurances from the United States government that citizens and dual citizens, as well as permanent residents and valid permit holders, will not be affected by the executive order, which I think is concrete action. And just to return to the original point, in the recent aftermath of the Quebec tragedy, the outpouring of support and compassion. Anybody who attended a vigil last night, Don, saw the resilience and the coming around the people of Quebec, the way that this country always does. So this isn't just talk. This is concrete action, and we will continue to take it. And Canadians should be very proud of that.
I don't know. I noted with some interest that the UK Parliament, there are sides denouncing Trump, like personally naming him, naming the government. It seems the government's a little skittish about using the word Donald Trump and linking it to what's going on as something you disapprove of. How do you handle that, Marco? I mean, how does this government criticize that government and get away with it without a consequence?
You handle that by engaging your friends and your allies the way that we have with the United States. And again, I would return to the most, I think, relevant example in the present circumstances, and that is that in the short moments after the executive order was issued, where there was some confusion in all candor around how Canadians would be affected, our government sought and got assurances that they would not. And so that clarity is very important. Right. Around the Safe Third Country Agreement, for example, the Minister of Immigration, Ahmed Hussein, who's a quick study, as
I'll say.
Minister John McCallum. Very sad to see both him and Stéphane Dion go, by the way, today. But they're going to continue to serve Canada very
They're
proudly.
landing in clover, so let's not feel too bad about it.
But just on that front, the Minister Hussein said just this past weekend is that he will issue temporary visas as required. So, and anytime there has been an issue identified by Canadians and by the communities that are most affected by it, our government is taking concrete action.
Albeit the message is usually seen through the prism of leadership races, but we've seen a lot of people criticizing Trump, and some people saying, hey, they don't say he's doing the right thing on this ban, but they sort of empathize with the direction he's going. But what's the Conservative Party's position? Is what Donald Trump is doing in the States right now a very bad thing in terms of this Muslim majority country immigration ban, or are you sort of looking the other way?
You know, I look at two things here. First of all, we look at the avenue that when he's got this immigration ban, like I said, it is their own country. We are Canadians here. But I also look at the important thing is that we need to build some relationships with Donald Trump. The fact is where I come from, Southwestern Ontario, we are really affected by things like NAFTA and the free trade agreements that we have, making sure that our goods get to the border, a lot of agriculture that's shipped to over 25 of the states, and really important things like that. I know both Ron Ambrose and Randy Hoback have gone there. We're trying to create relationships because anything that happens to us could have a very negative impact. So we need to make sure that we're out there and creating relationships so that we do what's best for Canadians, especially when it comes to employment and manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, Nikki, your leaders called Trump a fascist. I don't know if that's an opening to good dialogue or not. How far?
It's true.
Well, I'm not going to argue that point with you, but I guess I'm curious.
Did you agree with that?
He doesn't.
It wasn't a good start.
He will not take kindly to being called a fascist if the Prime Minister was doing the talking along that line.
Look, I mean, what we're seeing, I mean, I mentioned it at the beginning, is truly unprecedented. You know, it's whether it's the Muslim ban, whether it's the gag rule, whether it's the deep cuts that are being made to institutions, American institutions. I mean, his defiance of frankly, the Constitution is, you know, I mean, every day there's just so much coming out of that administration that repeatedly you're hearing people say, and it's only been a week, right? But the seeds of division that were definitely sown during the campaign quite well are coming out here in a big way. You know, I mean, you know, we have to grapple with some of that division and the politics of hate here in our own country. I mean, the tragedy that took place on Sunday is a reflection of the kind of Islamophobia that exists here in our own country. But the point here is that we need to denounce those that do make clear statements that are discriminatory. We've done so with Trump, and frankly, it's disappointing not to see members of the government do the same.
Well, let me ask you, though, if I can. I remember very clearly when George W. Bush was the president, we had one parliamentary secretary stomp on a doll of George W. Bush, and another communications director that called him a moron, maybe in jest, maybe in all seriousness. And they both suffered penalties for daring to speak out. How far can we go, though, frankly, Karen, before there should be some reining in?
You mean referring to the motions by Thomas Mulcair and things like that?
Speaking about the Trump administration.
You
How far will you go as an MP? Do you think he's doing the right thing?
I will protect Canadian rights at all costs. I think at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we have good jobs, good immigration policies, things like that. But at the same time, I recognize he is not my president. I have a prime minister. I'm not an American. I'm a Canadian. And so when we talk about what we're going to do, I think we have to stick up for Canadians first, and that should be should be our main goal here. But when people talk about Trump, I always remind myself, he is not my president. Whether I'm grateful or not grateful shouldn't be the case here. My job is to represent Canadians and making sure we're doing what's best for them. Yeah. So what will I do? My thing is do what's best for Canadians,
You're a parliamentary secretary. Would you stomp on a Donald Trump doll?
Well, I would reiterate what the Prime Minister said, which is that the golden thread which runs through all decisions on, which are taken by the government will be governed by what is in the best interest of all Canadians. And I think that just to address some of the comments that Nikki made around, you know, Islamophobia, I have a colleague in Iqra Khalid who's bringing forward a motion, which I hope will receive the unanimous support of the House, because this government believes vigorously that Muslims are part of this nation. They are part of the fabric of this nation. We are happy to have them here. And everyone who has the opportunity should reach out to them at this difficult moment. And on jobs, you know, Mr. Trump had sent an emissary recently to the cabinet retreat. And what that demonstrates, Don, is that we are going to have a seat at the table, whether it's on the economy or whether it's on trade or whether it's on security. We are going to continue to have an open channel with the United States administration, which will indeed benefit all Canadians.
Speaking of open channels, one that seems to be possibly closing a bit is Mexico's concern. Canada's throwing Mexico under the NAFTA bus and trying to do bilateral instead of including all three countries. Do you think that's a real, should we even be considering doing that? Because clearly Mexico is the target of a lot of Donald Trump's wrath.
Very true. And actually, my father-in-law lives in Mexico, so we discussed this a lot over the holidays. When I was down in Mexico for 4 days visiting my father-in-law, in which we saw the negative feelings towards Trump. They were very, very strong. At the same time, we have not done anything wrong. We as Canadians are always open to Mexico. Yes, currently we have some different things with visas that are required or have been banished, but we also have to look at what are we going to do. We have to make sure we have these trade agreements both bilaterally and with three countries.
I'm talking too much, so
no,
can you make it quick?
Well, I'll be very concise. We recently secured a lifting of the visa restrictions which the last administration had imposed, and obviously that is with a view to increasing the mobility between our two countries, which will obviously feed economic growth and jobs. And we know that that's what Canadians are worried about. Middle-class Canadians are working hard, and this government will continue to support them.
Hard to make a quick answer, but can you make a quick answer to that question?
Sure.
Mexico.
I mean, fundamentally, it's about where Justin Trudeau's willing to stand on Canadian jobs. We've yet to hear exactly what Canada's talking about in the context of NAFTA. People are concerned, and we need leadership.
All right. Don't take the bait on that. Time's up. Make it well. We'll see you next
Nice to see you again, Don.
Thanks, Don.
All right. After these